While the US is dropping bombs on Tehran and the world is watching in panic, Beijing just signed another oil contract with Iran, discounted in yuan. No sanctions, no consequences. This war has a winner. And it isn't America. Hello friends. The Iran-US war is being packaged as a battle for regional security, for freedom, for democracy. Every news channel is covering the missile strikes, the death tolls, the geopolitical blame game. But there is a story running parallel to all of this. Quieter, slower, and far more consequential. It is the story of how one country, without deploying a single soldier, without issuing a single threat, is using this war as a ladder to reshape the entire global order. That country is China. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how, step by step, number by number, so clearly that you will never look at this conflict the same way again. Let's begin with a number. Right now, China is purchasing Iranian crude oil at a discount of $12 to $15 per barrel below the international market price. Think about what that means in practice. While Europe, Japan, South Korea, and India scramble to find alternative oil sources after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, China has already locked in long-term energy contracts with Iran at rock-bottom prices. How the mechanics are surprisingly simple. A shadow fleet of tankers, vessels that disable their GPS transponders, rebrand under different flags, and sail directly to Chinese refineries in Shandong province has been operating since 2021. According to tracking data from Vortexa Analytics, Iran exports approximately 1.6 million barrels of oil per day to China despite US sanctions. And since March 2026, that number has increased by over 30%. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The US knows about this. It has satellite data, shipping intelligence, and full visibility. And yet it does almost nothing meaningful to stop it. Because sanctioning China for buying Iranian oil would mean declaring economic war on the world's second-largest economy. That is a confrontation America is not ready for. So China buys cheap oil. The war continues. And America pays for both. Friends, the oil discount is just the surface. What lies underneath is far more important. Every single one of these Iran-China oil transactions is settled in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. Now, I need you to understand why this matters more than any missile strike on Tehran. Since the end of World War II, the global oil trade has been denominated in US dollars. This is the foundation of what economists call the petrodollar system. When Japan needs to buy oil, it first needs to buy dollars. When India needs to buy oil, it first buys dollars. When Germany, Brazil, South Korea, when any country on earth needs energy, it creates demand for the US dollar. This constant global demand is what gives America the ability to run trillion-dollar deficits, print money without triggering hyperinflation, and project financial power across every corner of the world. The petrodollar is the invisible engine of American dominance. And right now, that engine is being dismantled. Quietly, transaction by transaction. In 2023, Saudi Arabia announced it would consider yuan-denominated oil sales to China. In 2024, the UAE began settling energy trades in yuan. In early 2026, Iraq began accepting yuan for Chinese crude purchases. And now, with the Strait of Hormuz closed and the Middle East in economic chaos, every oil producer that needs cash flow is looking to China and accepting yuan to get it. Friends, historians will look back at this period as the beginning of the end of dollar hegemony. It is not happening in one dramatic moment. It is happening in thousands of small, unreported transactions. And the Iran war is accelerating it faster than anyone predicted. Here is something that is almost never discussed in Western coverage of this war. When the Strait of Hormuz closes, it disrupts approximately 20% of the world's total oil supply. Ships cannot pass through the Persian Gulf. The entire global energy system is forced to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks and hundreds of millions of dollars in shipping costs. But China has already built an alternative. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) connects the deepwater port of Gwadar in Pakistan's Balochistan province directly to Xinjiang in western China. This overland route bypasses the Strait of Hormuz entirely. Iran can pipe oil north through Pakistan. China can receive it through its own territory. No tankers, no Hormuz, no disruption. China spent over $60 billion building this infrastructure over the past decade. At the time, analysts called it excessive. Today, it is looking like one of the most far-sighted strategic investments in modern history. While the world is panicking about the oil blockade, China has an exit door. One that it built with its own money. One that nobody else has access to. And the deeper irony: every country that is suffering from the Hormuz closure will, when this war ends, be looking for new energy infrastructure partnerships. Who will they turn to? The country that already built the infrastructure. China wins the war. China wins the reconstruction. Both friends. Understanding geopolitics at this level requires more than headlines. You need to understand systems, energy systems, financial systems, military alliance structures. This is exactly why I built the Geopolitics Masterclass. In 3 hours, I walk you through how global power actually works. How decisions made in Beijing, Washington, and Riyadh end up affecting your fuel prices, your savings, and your job market. Over 80,000 people have taken this class, and 84% said it changed the way they understand the news. Register through the link in the description. It costs less than a dinner out. The understanding it gives you will last years. Let us talk about the economic damage that is happening in real time, because this is not abstract. This is money coming out of real pockets. Japan imports 95% of its energy. South Korea, 80%. Both are now paying a spot market premium for oil rerouted around Africa. Both economies are contracting. Germany, which already triggered one energy crisis by cutting off Russian gas after 2022, is now in its second energy shock in 4 years. European inflation, which had finally stabilized, is rising again. In the United States, average gas prices have crossed $5 per gallon in multiple states. Political pressure on the Trump administration is intense. There are Senate hearings. There are protests. The economic cost of maintaining this war is now visible to ordinary Americans at the pump every time they fill their tank. And here is the structural paradox that nobody in power wants to say clearly. The longer this war continues, the more it costs the Western economies, and the cheaper it gets for China. Every month of conflict is another month of discounted Iranian oil flowing east. Another month of yuan-settled transactions weakening the petrodollar. Another month of global South countries quietly concluding that the US-led financial order is not the only option available to them. Some analysts argue, eventually, America will break Iran. The Islamic Republic will fall. The Strait will reopen. US dominance will reassert itself. Maybe, but consider what that outcome actually looks like for China. In 2021, China and Iran signed a 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership. Under this deal, China committed $400 billion in investment into Iran's infrastructure, banking system, oil sector, and transportation network in exchange for deeply discounted energy and geopolitical alignment. $400 billion. In Iran, even if the Islamic Republic falls tomorrow, even if a completely new government takes power in Tehran, that government will not. On day one, simply abandon that relationship to please Washington. China has embedded itself so deeply into Iran's economic architecture that it will remain the dominant outside power in Tehran, regardless of who runs the government. America can win the military campaign. China has already won the long-term relationship. This is the distinction that is being missed. America thinks in terms of battles. China thinks in terms of decades. Friends, here is the insight that I want you to sit with for a moment. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. China does not need to fire a single bullet to win this war. Every bomb that America drops on Iran costs us taxpayers' money. Every oil tanker forced to reroute around Africa costs Western economies money. Every sanction that pushes an oil producer toward yuan-settled trade erodes the dollar's reserve currency status. Every month of conflict deepens China's discount oil contracts, accelerates Belt and Road adoption, and expands Beijing's role as the indispensable economic partner for the global South. China is not a combatant in this war. It is the primary beneficiary of the chaos that war creates. This is not accidental. This is not luck. This is a playbook that Beijing has refined across 25 years and 4 American military interventions: Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, now Iran. Every time America fights, China builds. The difference today, the thing that makes this moment historically unprecedented, is that China's economic scale is now large enough to convert this strategy into lasting structural power. Not regional influence, not economic leverage in one sector. Genuine civilization-level power that rivals and may surpass American dominance within a generation. We are watching the transition from a unipolar world to something entirely new. And the Iran war may be the moment historians point to when they explain how it happened. So what does this mean for your life? Concretely, if oil stays above $100 per barrel, which is likely for as long as Hormuz remains closed, everything gets more expensive: fuel, food, plastics, shipping, heating. The modern economy runs on petroleum, and petroleum is now a geopolitical weapon. Beyond energy costs, the structural shift in global finance creates long-term uncertainty for savings and investments. If the dollar weakens relative to a basket of currencies over the next decade, which petrodollar erosion makes increasingly likely the real purchasing power of dollar-denominated savings will decline. This affects pension funds, retirement accounts, and the value of currency in countries with dollar-pegged exchange rates. This is not a prediction of doom. It is a description of the transition we are already inside. The question is not whether these changes are coming. They are already here. The question is whether you understand them well enough to make decisions accordingly. Scenario 1. America succeeds in toppling the Iranian government. A friendly regime takes power. Hormuz reopens. Oil prices fall. The dollar rebounds. But China keeps its discounted contracts, its CPEC infrastructure, and its embedded investment in Iran. It wins regardless. Scenario 2. The war drags on for 6 or more months. Economic pressure forces ceasefire negotiations. China steps in as the mediator, as it did between Saudi Arabia and Iran in 2023, and emerges as the region's new diplomatic power broker. It wins, and more visibly. Scenario 3. The conflict expands beyond Iran. Hezbollah, Iraq, broader regional actors become involved. The global economy enters recession. Demand for oil collapses. Nobody wins, but China loses least, because it entered the conflict with the deepest reserves of economic resilience and the most diversified energy supply chains. 3 scenarios. China wins cleanly in 2 of them, loses least in the 3rd. This is what strategic depth looks like. Friends, the world you grew up in is being redesigned right now. Not in the halls of the United Nations. It's not at a peace summit. In oil contracts, infrastructure deals, and currency settlements that never make the front page. If this analysis gave you a clearer picture of what's happening, share it with one person who needs to see it. It costs you nothing. It might change how they understand the next 5 years. Subscribe if you aren't already. Cover these connections every week between military events, economic data, and the decisions that shape ordinary lives. And tell me in the comments, do you think China is winning this war without fighting it?
I
Want to read your perspective. Some of the best analysis in this community comes from the comments section. If you want to go deeper on the petrodollar system, how it was built, how it actually works, and what its decline means. I have a full video on that linked right here. Watch it next. It will make everything in today's video twice as clear. Thank you for watching.